Hello, it's Constance presenting for Parenting Genie, the Wednesday night breastfeeding educational snippets. And tonight I am going to cover a little bit about breastfeeding and exercise. I've got a few things written down. So if I do look away from the camera, then it's just because I don't want to forget anything. So I hope you're all well. I hope you had a beautiful Easter. You may have eaten a few too many chocolate eggs and are wondering what you could do about it, about the calories that you had too many. So tonight, I would like to answer a few of your possible questions, whether you can exercise whilst you are breastfeeding. And if so, how can you do it safely and what do you need to know about it? One statement straight away is that exercise whilst breastfeeding does not reduce supply. There is no research that would back that up. So tonight I'd like to just talk about the stages of exercises that you could do after you've given birth to your beautiful baby or your babies, if you've had twins or triplets. So let's start with what's actually happening in your body after the birth. So there's a lot of hormones being released, prolactin being one of the major hormones in breastfeeding that is responsible for milk supply. And then there's oxytocin that's responsible for the milk flow or the milk release. And then there's quite a lot of other hormones, but there's one particular hormone that you may have heard of even in some of your antenatal classes, and that's relaxin. Relaxin is a hormone that is being released during pregnancy to soften joints and ligaments to help the birth of the baby. And they remain loose for 4 to 6 months after having given birth, which means it's a good idea to take it easy with exercising. The body after birth is in a recovering mode from pregnancy and from the birth. And core muscles are weaker. And then, of course, our pelvic floor muscles would have been under quite some strain, just even from carrying a baby or two. And then, of course, the milk is starting to come in, and maybe the milk is already fully established, the supply. So the breast may feel quite full and heavy. And they may also be quite sensitive. And all that affects how and when to return to exercise. In the first stage, the early postpartum period, that's roughly the first 6 weeks, it's really all about recovery. And I would even say personally that it goes beyond that, depending on what kind of birth you've had. Now, regardless of what sort of birth you had, the focus of exercise has to be on gentle movement. And possibly even as easy as breathing exercises for the chest and the pelvic floor. Short walks, light walking. And then also pelvic floor activation through pelvic floor exercises, of which you would have heard already during your pregnancy. So the first 6 weeks is not the time for high impact workouts. And I would certainly suggest not to have any intense core exercises like sit-ups or planks, because your body, as said before, is in recovery mode, and you need to slowly start doing more and more if that's what you want to do for your body. Most places like gyms and exercise studios and fitness studios suggest that you do have your 6 weeks postnatal clearance by a midwife or a general practitioner or a doctor or gynecologist, obstetrician. And then you can start building up exercise gradually. That also depends on the way you gave birth. If you've had the vaginal birth, then 6 weeks is possibly a start with more exercise. But if you've had a cesarean section, you may want to wait longer. 8 to 12 weeks is sort of recommended. An uncomplicated vaginal birth is something where you can introduce light strength training and also low impact cardio. And what is low impact cardio? It's swimming, provided that you do not have any bleeding anymore. Or you could do cycling, or you can do some more brisk walking. If you've had a cesarean section, however, your recovery will take that little bit longer, as mentioned just before, because a cesarean section is major abdominal surgery. And so the focus should be on gentle core reactivation, protecting the scar and gradually increasing the activity. So I repeat, 8 to 12 weeks is usually more realistic in returning to a little bit more higher intensity exercises. It really also depends how you feel in your body as well. So just you need to not just go by the book, but really on how you feel and what you can cope with. So once you reach the stage of established lactation, which is around 12 weeks, you can usually return to moderate exercises, including jogging, strength training, or fitness classes. A really important point here is that exercise does not reduce your milk supply, as I've mentioned straight at the beginning, as long as you're eating enough. And some of you may remember that I had a talk about nutrition and lactation, and it's still usually the 400 to 500 calories more that you need when you're breastfeeding and needing to produce milk for your baby. One big aspect, however, is staying hydrated. So usually the hormones of lactation and the lactation itself, the breastfeeding act, do make you feel thirsty and you drink more. But when you exercise, you need to drink even more. So that's very important. And now we're coming to some practical suggestions in terms how to exercise with full breaths or with breaths that make milk. It's a good idea to not have your breasts really full when you start exercising. So breastfeed your baby before exercise, or if that's not an option, then express your breasts before exercising. This would help to reduce discomfort of full breasts, and it also lowers the chance of your breast leaking. As it also helps to reduce the risk of breast engorgement. During exercise, wearing absorbent breast pads can make quite a difference. I would suggest silicone or disposable breast pads at that point. After exercise, some books recommend that you take a shower and change fairly soon to some more comfort clothing and hygiene and things like that. But really, I'm not too fussed about giving that sort of advice. There has been some suggestions that sweat, your body sweat, could affect your baby not wanting to drink your milk. Again, that seems to be a myth that is just a myth. Never heard of it, never really seen any issues with that. What is a very, very important and good idea, instead of getting your best yoga mat or a new pair of runners, which could be good as well, but it's certainly a good idea to invest in a very, very supportive sports bra, especially for higher impact exercise. So looking at a sports bra that is designed for breastfeeding, provides support, is not wired or underwired, and might actually have moisture absorbing fabric and can be easily accessed when you need to feed. For larger breasts, you may benefit from layering a compression sports bra over a supportive nursing bra to have that extra support for larger breasts. Try to avoid bras that are too tight, because again, there is that risk of blocked ducts and it can be very uncomfortable. Before I wrap up some of these tips, I also would like to just go through them again. So again, stay well hydrated, because breastfeeding increases your fluid needs. We know that. Make sure you're eating enough, because your body needs energy for both milk production and exercise. Again, I've said that. And listen to your body. If you feel pain or heaviness in your pelvic floor or any unusual symptoms, that's a sign to slow down and to maybe seek some support from a fitness instructor. Exercise during breastfeeding is safe and beneficial. And we know that it improves mood and lowers stress. Because what happens during exercise is we also release endorphins, which is our happy hormones. And we need them when we are pretty full on in our early parenting and maybe even second time parenting. So exercise speeds up recovery. Why is that? Because we have better circulation. So if we've got better circulation, we have more healing happening in our tissues. Exercise also helps to sleep better. And of course, it does help a healthy weight loss. And for some of us who may have put on more weight during our pregnancy than we intended to, that's certainly something nice to know. And there's another really, really good benefit to exercising after you've given birth and whilst you're breastfeeding, and that's it strengthens bones. And that's probably most of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Now, remember, taking care of your body is taking care of your baby. It's important that we have mothers who feel good about themselves, and then that makes mothering and parenting much easier. I just mentioned a few exercises that are recommended. Low impact cardio is recommended after you've had your 6 weeks or 12 weeks clearance from your midwife or your doctor. light strength training, yoga and stretching. And there's yoga classes for mothers and babies where you can take your baby with you to the class. I would search for them, which is really nice as well, because then you don't feel necessarily that you have to have childcare in that time. And you're doing something for your baby as well. And why is yoga and stretching such a good idea? Because when you breastfeed, quite often you get a little bit of a stiff neck and tight shoulders. All these kind of things is really good if you can do some stretching and some relaxation. Then safe core strengthening. So core exercises after childbirth are really advisable. What should you avoid in terms of sport? Contact sports. Why is that? It is considered a high impact exercise, and you could also get hit in your chest by a ball, and that could injure your breasts or your sternum, and could have effects on your breastfeeding. And what else you should avoid? Exhausting workouts. Because as a new mom or a new parent, you're already exhausted. And so you need to do things that give you more energy rather than taking your energy. And that's pretty much all I want to say today. If you have any comments, if you want to discuss anything with a midwife, a lactation consultant, or a maternal child health nurse, please look into parentinggenie.com.au. We have lots of resources on the website, and you can also take out a 2-week free membership to see what we can do for you. And with that, I'll see you in another week again with another topic. Take care and goodbye.